All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening. My name is Lauren Payne, and I'm the director in the Malone Center for Career Engagement here at Furman. And I want to welcome everyone to tonight's panel. This is our service year panel, Transforming Your Community and Transforming Your Resume. I'm super excited because we have really a phenomenal lineup of organizations that are attending tonight's event with us. So I think the students that are with us are going to learn a lot about some really great service opportunities. So we'll start with some introductions, and then from there I have some prepared questions that I'm going to ask, and then of course there'll be an opportunity for the students that are with us tonight to ask questions as well. We're using the webinar format tonight, so we won't be able to see you, but you can definitely use the chat function to ask any questions that you have, and we will do our best to answer any of the questions that you all have during tonight's event. So I know we only have an hour together, so I want to get us started really quickly here. So let's go ahead and just jump in with some introductions. I'm going to ask each of the panelists if they wouldn't mind just introducing themselves, telling us a little bit about your role, and then of course a little bit about the organization that you represent. So let's go ahead and I'll get started. Matt, do you want to start us off with some introductions?
Hey everyone, thanks for joining. My name is Matt Hudson-Flegge. I'm the program director for Furman College Advising Corps here at Furman University. We're part of the National College Advising Corps organization, which places recent college grads as advisors in high schools to help high school students figure out life after high school. So we have several service opportunities here in South Carolina I'm excited to talk to you about, and also nationwide.
Great, thanks, Matt. Ina, I'll have you go next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ina Tubaleha, and I am the Service Member Recruitment Manager at FoodCorps. And FoodCorps is a team of AmeriCorps leaders where we want to connect kids, school kids, to real food and think about what we're eating every day in cafeteria lunches.
Thank you, Ina. Let's see, Rachel, you want to go next?
Hi all, my name is Rachel Goodrow. I am currently a fellow for a small but growing grassroots nonprofit called Project Horseshoe Farm. And I'm basically in charge of recruitment nationally for the organization this year.
Thank you, Rachel. How about Phil? You want to jump in there next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Phil Smith. I'm a recruiter with City Year. City Year, we're an education-focused nonprofit where the main goal is to pair young people like yourselves with students that need that extra push towards graduation. Definitely tell you a little bit more a little bit later.
All right, great, Phil. Thank you. Abby, you want to jump in next?
Good evening, y'all. I'm Abby Blakely. I am the AmeriCorps Program Coordinator for AmeriCorps Upstate, and we are a small AmeriCorps program here in South Carolina. So we've got positions in Greenville, Pickens, Anderson, and Lawrence. And my job is to recruit, train, develop, and support my team. In the community, we are focused on financial stability. So that's teaching financial literacy classes, connecting people in need to resources and benefit applications, and then doing free tax preparation at clinics in the community.
Great, thank you, Abby. And Jackie.
Good evening, guys. My name is Jackie. I am based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So honored to be here tonight representing Teach for America. Teach for America is a nonprofit leadership development organization where we place teachers for 2 years in low-income communities. We have 50 regions all throughout the United States. And we say it's a 2-year, first 2-year commitment, but lifelong impact, because you will be joining a core size of 60,000 alumni where we will train and support you after your 2 years in the classroom, because we have so many partnerships with grad schools, law schools, and medical schools to continue your impact elsewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and drop in the chat a sign-in form if you want to just go ahead and give me some information about you so we can continue this conversation afterwards.
Great. Well, thank you all for introducing yourselves. I know that our students are really interested in learning a little bit more about the different service opportunities, what those opportunities entail, kind of what a day-to-day, maybe if there is such a thing as a day-to-day on the service role looks like. And then just some information about just what the application process looks like. Also, I think it would be helpful for them to know about any deadlines. I know some of you have deadlines that are coming up actually really soon. So I want to make sure that we share those deadlines with the students as well. So I'll give you a little bit more time to go into more depth about your opportunities. So let me go ahead and I'll start with, let me go backwards this time. And Jackie, you want to start us off and talk a little bit about some of the Teach for America opportunities?
Yes, I would love to. So Teach for America has deadlines all throughout the year. You are not more likely to get accepted if you apply earlier in the year as you are in the end of the year, but we do have rolling applications. So our next deadline is actually coming up this upcoming Friday, or next Friday, the 16th. So if you apply by the 16th, you're just more likely to get your first choice. Like I mentioned, we have 50 regions across the United States. So if you would rank, like if you want to stay in South Carolina and you rank that as your first choice, you're more likely to get that as your choice, whether you apply now versus if you apply in March. So yes, this Friday, or this upcoming Friday, the 16th.
Jackie, do you want to talk a little bit more about what the teaching position entails and kind of what that 2 years looks like within the schools?
Of course. So Teach for America accepts all majors, all backgrounds. We are super committed to our diversity, equity, and inclusiveness, our DEI commitment. So we accept around 50% students of color and 50% of students who identify as low income themselves on the Pell Grant. Before you join the Corps, so after you're accepted to the Corps, but before you start in the classroom, you actually will have 6 weeks of training in the summer where you will be in the community, get to understand the community needs and work alongside them, as well as be trained in whatever subject and grade level you're going to be. So if you are committed to English, like let's say 6th grade English, then during those 6 weeks, you about your community, as well as learning about how to write lesson plans, classroom management, and you will have a mentor throughout your 2 years in the Corps. So those 2 years in the classroom, you'll have a mentor that comes into your classroom, gives you a ton of support, as well as after your 2 years in the classroom, they will support you whether you would like to go to grad school, stay in the classroom and make your best impact that way, join the recruitment team, or whatever you decide to do next.
Great, thank you, Jackie.
Yeah.
Abby, do you want to share a little bit about, I know there's a lot of different positions with AmeriCorps, but maybe a little bit about what those positions look like and how students would go about applying for those opportunities?
Sure, yeah, AmeriCorps is really diverse. A lot of us on the call are related to AmeriCorps in some way because there's so many different types of grants. I can put a link in the chat here in a minute that gives a really good breakdown about the different branches of AmeriCorps. My program is state and national, and so that means that you work with people directly. The day-to-day can look really different. I honestly did this program myself when I graduated college. So my day-to-day, I would try and recruit volunteers for the free tax program. I would study my tax books to kind of learn how to prepare income taxes because I'd never done that before, and that's totally okay. The test is open book, open note, just not open neighbor. And then during tax season, I prepared people's taxes. So in the off season, when I wasn't doing tax related things, I did things like working at food banks, giving out food boxes, helping people get their utility bills paid, helping them use a system called Thrive Hub, which is a common application for benefits. So helping people get food stamps or Medicaid, things like that. My position, I had a lot of freedom to do a lot of different kinds of things because most of my role was focused on the tax program. So outside of tax season, I got to explore a lot and learn a lot about the local nonprofit community and even teach financial literacy classes. So depending on your position in my organization, you might be a higher percentage with the tax program or a higher percentage working with financial literacy. But we are full-time and we are a one-year program, but we've had people stay up to 4, that's a maximum. And every year we start mid-August, we have 2 weeks of training. And then in September, you would start with your host organization. So that varies every year depending on who applies to us to host people. That might be a Goodwill, it might be a small local nonprofit, might be somewhere like United Ministries. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that. And so your match placement is determined in the interview process. So in the spring, our application will open, and we take applications all the way until our slots are filled, and we interview on a rolling basis starting in usually about May. And then, you start and everyone graduates on July 31st. The big thing is you have to get 1,700 service hours to get your education award. And that's pretty standard for most full-time AmeriCorps programs, insurance, dental, and vision. Your student loans can go in forbearance, and the interest be paid when you complete your term, which is another benefit of AmeriCorps that not very many people know about.
Thank you, Abby. I appreciate that. Phil, do you want to jump in and talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that are available through City Year and what kind of the application process would look like for those opportunities?
Sure. So City Year, we are an AmeriCorps program as well. So our position is called a student success coach. So essentially, you will be partnered with an experienced teacher, and you're there to remediate with those students that really struggle with material. So let's say a teacher is delivering a lesson in polynomials, the addition and subtraction. You, as the student success coach, might just do that addition on Monday. You could then do that subtraction on a Tuesday, and those students would join the rest of that class for a general review on Wednesday. So you're really slowing things down for them. They're able to get more immediate feedback, which in turn helps them in their learning gains, as many of them have already lost many years due to just class sizes and environmental stresses that are on them. In terms of our application process, we do have a deadline coming up on November 13th, and our application is open now. I'm going to go ahead and put a form in the chat. That will be the best way for us to stay in contact so that I can send you the direct link to our application, as well as answer any follow-up questions that you may have.
Great, thank you, Phil. Rachel, I'll come to you now and just give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the Project Horseshoe Farm and what the opportunities look like with your organization.
Sure. Sorry, I realized my audio, I think, cut out at the end of my last one, so I never actually described the organization, so I'll take a second to do that. I apologize for that. I am video chatting in from rural Alabama right now. We do not have the most stable connections, so if you can't hear me, please shout, wave your hand, something. But basically, Project Horseshoe Farm is a 501c nonprofit based in Greensboro, Alabama, and we were founded in 2007 by Dr. John Dorsey, a psychiatrist who has immense passion for serving both the mental and physical health needs of disadvantaged communities. In the past 2 years, we have also expanded to 2 additional sites, one in Marion, Alabama, right next door, and one in Pomona, California, across the country. The organization then accepts fellows to help run this nonprofit. And I'm currently one of the 28 fellows across our 3 sites, and we are the 9th class of fellows that Project Horseshoe Farm has hosted. And so this fellowship is an immersive, hands-on, transformative 13-month experience in which you will have the opportunity to witness how all aspects of a community are inextricably linked to public health. And so fellows live in the communities they serve and are provided housing and a living stipend for the year to offset educational costs. Our prominent service opportunity would be the Community Health Fellowship. And this is, again, a year-long gap year experience for recent college graduates. Fellows are signed to one of our 3 sites. And again, they live there, work in the community for that whole year, carrying out public health initiatives that meet the goals of the organization. Some of the programs that fellows participate in are our Health Partners program, in which you serve as a patient liaison for individuals in the community. I currently have 8 health partners, and I'm pretty much running around all day, getting them to appointments, helping them with medication compliance, and just serving as a positive relationship in their life. We also run a youth program that specializes in tutoring youth in the community, as well as encouraging healthy habits within them. we have a housing program in which we manage homes for older women who are battling mental illness. And then we have a Meals Out program, which works to combat food insecurity in our communities. As a fellow, you would have the opportunity to engage with all of these different tasks in any given day. We also take on many community engagement tasks, such as working with local EMS, on local farms, and with other existing nonprofits to support their missions. And so our two major deadlines, our fall deadline is approaching on November 15th. And then our spring deadline is in February 21st. And the application is the same for both deadlines, and it can be found on our website under the Apply tab, and I will link the website in the chat a little later. And then any qualified applicants will receive an interview and then potentially a secondary interview before any acceptance.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. All right, Ina, I'm going to come over to you now and have you tell us a little bit about the FoodCorps and the service opportunities available with FoodCorps and what the application process looks like with you all.
Sure. Yeah, happy to share. So the FoodCorps program, a typical day is really just centered around how do we build habits in elementary school children to eat healthier and build habits that will last a lifetime. And so a typical day in a FoodCorps service member is in three ways. They'll start to do hands-on lessons with school teachers to learn about recipes, cooking, gardening, things of that nature. They'll work on introducing vegetable taste tests in the cafeteria and organizing healthy school meals. And then the third thing is building a school-wide culture of health and really thinking about and working with the cafeteria staff to see how food ends up in the cafeteria and what are opportunities for building healthier meals there. We're present in 17 states across the United States, and these are also composing of sites in indigenous communities, and especially in low-income areas as well. The application process for FoodCorps typically takes place in early January to March. So we usually publish the application and we start accepting applicants early in the new year. And there's 3 rounds to our application process. The first round is just the application screening. Then all of the applicants go through a phone screening. After those 2 stages, then they'll actually be paired with a potential site, where the site and the community will do an interview with the potential applicants. Even though the FoodCorps program is based around those 3 pillars, it does look different based off of the community in which you're serving in, because healthy food is very specific to each community. And what we typically look for in our applicants is, a lot of our applicants, they have to enjoy working with kids. Most of the day-to-day is working in the cafeteria in the school itself. So, we do see a lot of people that have younger siblings or that have been babysitting in the past. We do often see a lot of applicants that are really passionate about gardening and farming. A lot of our service sites actually have school gardens that the service member will work with the school to help grow things for the cafeteria and for the taste test. And just an understanding of our mission and a connection to healthy food. Those are the 3 things that we typically look for in our applicants. I'm going to send a link in the chat. So if you would like to stay connected, feel free to sign up on our email list, and that's where we share the most up-to-date information about our program.
Great. Thank you, Ina. And Matt, I'll come to you and have you share a little bit about the College Advising Corps.
Thanks, Lauren. So for the students on this webinar, why are you here? Why are you logged on this evening? So probably you're logged on because you're approaching the end of your college career and trying to figure out what the heck is the first step in my professional career going to be. Maybe you know exactly what you want to do, but you're not quite sure how to get there. Or maybe you're just not really quite sure what your passion is and where you want to end up. And that's a tough thing to figure out in any given times, but especially in the midst of a global pandemic, really difficult. So wouldn't it be nice if you had an advisor that could work with you one-on-one to help you figure out that next step? So essentially what a college advisor does is fill that exact role, but for a high school senior. So we place college advisors in South Carolina high schools to help them figure out life after high school. What type of school do they want to go to? What do they want to study? And then how do they make that dream a reality? What sort of scholarships and financial aid are they eligible for? Walking through the application process and financial aid process with students and their families. So every day looks different, but essentially you're placed in a high school working one-on-one with students to help them figure out that next step. At Furman, we place college advisors in high schools in Lancaster and Chester County, South Carolina, which is sort of south of the Charlotte area. We just recently started placing advisors in Greenville County, so I hope to have a position or two here locally. And we're also next year going to be having advisors in Clarendon, which is sort of a more central area of South Carolina. And while certainly I hope Furman students are interested in serving with Furman College Advising Corps, College Advising Corps also has chapters at universities in about 17 or 18 states. So there's opportunities to be a college advisor nationwide. As far as application process, I typically open the applications in mid-January, which I'll publicize, widely at Furman. You'll find me out in front of the library with a table and a bowl of candy, so come stop by. And then we hope to extend offers in early to mid-March. But I will say, certainly for any Furman student, would love to chat with you anytime between now and then if you're interested in College Advising Corps. And also, I like to make the blanket statement to Furman students. Happy to talk about any year of service program. Served in an AmeriCorps program myself, and also served in the Peace Corps. So I'm happy to talk through any other opportunities as well. And I will follow the lead of my fellow panelists and drop a link to our website in the chat.
All right, thanks everyone. I hope that that provides the students that are with us tonight with a little bit of insight about what some of these different opportunities look like and what the application process looks like. Definitely, you got to keep your eyes on those deadlines because they come up, they approach pretty quickly. So you don't want to wait till the end of the school year to start applying typically for these opportunities. So thanks for sharing those with us. Abby, I think you were kind of mentioning earlier about some of the benefits, I think some of the educational benefits of participating in an AmeriCorps type program. So I was hoping maybe you could just share with us a little bit more about some of the educational benefits that are available. I know that we'll probably have a lot of students with us tonight that are thinking about graduate school in the future. So could you walk us through that a little bit more?
Sure. I always say that when I go to career fairs, I really need a t-shirt that says, ask me how I paid off my student loans, because it's the truth. I think it would get people to my table. But with AmeriCorps, you can get the equivalent of 2 full-time education awards, which the amount goes with the Pell Grant. That's $6,195 right now, usually goes up incrementally every year. That amount goes into an account, and you are the administrator of that account. That's the best way that I can think to explain it. When you apply to AmeriCorps, usually it's through my.americorps.gov. That's where you can find AmeriCorps listings nationwide for all different kinds, and it's a common application. You can apply to a lot of different places. I know some on the call may have other places that you can go. But the education award, so if you can get 2 of those, that's 12 grand, which is just very, very cool. But maybe you don't have student loans, or maybe you're looking at grad school. There are schools that will match that or double it. I know that Duke School of Business is on there. There's a whole list on AmeriCorps.gov. There are schools that do tuition discounts. So like 25% off for graduate school. I think it's Northeastern. So there's schools like the Institute for Public Service Learning, where you go and do, 4 semesters abroad in different countries. That's the one I want to do. And they have really great benefits for AmeriCorps alums. So always make sure and ask if there's not one, if they have AmeriCorps alum benefits. But you don't have to use it right away. Maybe you're just not sure, like Matt was talking about. You just don't know yet. I know I was in that boat. You have 7 years to use it. And so the money's in the account for you. You log into your My AmeriCorps portal and you say, send $1,000 to this student loan. Send this amount to this school. you know, I'm going to go to Greenville Tech and I'm going to take that class on drawing that I've always wanted to take, or I'm going to go to an accredited university and get my certifications to help me in whatever career I choose. And you can even extend it for an additional 7 years in some circumstances. So not everybody it knows yet for what you're going to do. And then I mentioned the student loan forbearance and the interest payment, and those are also really cool benefits too.
You're muted, Lauren.
I keep forgetting. Thanks. Thank you, Abby. That was really helpful. I would imagine too that quite a few of your service year programs are really provide a good foundation and a good experience for those students that are applying to graduate school as far as their application goes. So maybe Ina, you're shaking your head. So maybe do you want to jump in and kind of talk a little bit about how the FoodCorps has prepared students maybe to pursue a master's program or a professional program?
Yeah, absolutely. So similar to the benefits that Abby was explaining, FoodCorps also has very similar benefits as well. Typically, after those that serve, they tend to pursue graduate degrees in public health, education, or nutrition. There's also been a significant amount of FoodCorps service members that have actually been hired directly by their service site after their service year, because they've seen the impact that they've made throughout the year, and they want to continue that kind of discussion in the cafeteria and in their classrooms around healthy food. In addition, we've also seen a lot of service members pursue careers in farming and the culinary industry, or also become garden coordinators or nonprofit program managers. So if they aren't interested in continuing their education, we've seen a lot of career paths like that of our service member alum.
Great, thank you. And then I know some of the students that are here may not be really thinking about graduate school in the future, but are looking to do this maybe to get some experience and use this kind of as a jumping off point for their career. So, you know, maybe Jackie, you want to talk a little bit about that? Like, how might a student use the Teach for America opportunity to help them launch a future career?
I'd love to. That's an excellent question. As I mentioned before, Teach for America, the misconception is that you need to be an education major. You do not. We really value diversity, and we accept all majors, all backgrounds, and we believe we are a leadership development organization. So if you are a teacher, then you are a leader, and we value the leadership that you bring with you. So because Teach for America has been so renowned with so many different grad schools and partnerships, we actually have grad school partnerships with schools such as Harvard, Columbia, Vanderbilt, and Stanford that have not only a waived admissions fee after you complete your 2 years in the Corps, but also a lower cost of admissions. So you could get up to, like, Johns Hopkins University is like 90% off if after you finish your 2 years in the Corps, because those graduate schools really value the transferable leadership skills that you will be developing within those 2 years. In addition to that, we have partnerships with over 3,000 top organizations, including Google, Deloitte, KPMG, and EY. So there's a lot of people that, even though they're teaching English for 2 years, they realize the need that there is to have whatever they experience in the Corps then transfer into their long-term impact. So for example, if you were teaching for 2 years and you saw that there was a lot of disparity in like healthcare, and that some of your students didn't have access to, like I had students that I taught in a low-income community that didn't have access to glasses, and they really need glasses to see the board, then some of my fellow Corps members, they went back and now they're in medical school with the help of Teach for America and AmeriCorps. I want to mention, building off what Abby said, we are also an AmeriCorps program. So we additionally have that same grant that she was talking about, where you receive $6,000 each year, and Teach for America is a 2-year commitment. So you get $12,000 in total. I also use them to pay back my student loans, but I could have used them to go back to grad school if I would so choose afterwards. And additionally, during your 2 years in the Corps, all of your loans are like frozen forbearance. You don't need to pay them during that time.
Great, thank you, Jackie. Rachel, you were mentioning earlier that a lot of your service members, are interested in health or medicine, that type of thing. So can you talk a little bit about, how the service year members, kind of their typical paths after they leave Project Horseshoe Farm?
Yeah, sure. So I would say the most predominant path that we see of fellows would be to go to medical school, directly to medical school. You can also stay for a second year in the fellowship if you choose to stay for another year. There are a couple people that have just fallen in love with it and decided to take another year with the fellowship before pursuing anything. I would say the second most common choice would be to then go get a graduate degree in public health. And then, or there's also, other fields in medicine, PA school, NP school, things like that, that we see students go into. And then also, similar to what one of the other panelists was saying, we are preparing, service leaders of tomorrow. So we have seen a couple of fellows in the past go into just other organizations, nonprofit organizations. One of our students now is working for, or former fellows is working for TFA, very exciting. But so we see them kind of take on leadership roles amongst other organizations or within our own organizations. Both of our new site directors in Pomona and the one in Marion were both former fellows. So it's interesting. This is the first year that we actually have one of our fellows from our first class is now a attending physician in Greensboro. She's returned to the organization that has served her for so long. So I would say the most predominant path is to go into medical school or public health field, but there are definitely other options that also the fellowship will prepare you for.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. Rachel, I remember in talking to you earlier, you said it was important that there's a lot of really great benefits of these service year opportunities, but it's also important to realize that sometimes challenges come with these service year opportunities. So I wanted to give you a chance to kind of touch on some of the challenges that maybe you experienced yourself or that you've seen others experience that have participated in your service program.
Yes, yeah, I think I am in a unique position, literally being in the middle of my gap year right now. So in my own experience, and I'm sure some of the other panelists can attest to this, it was pretty standard that the service work you be doing is not your typical 9 to 5. It's kind of in many ways around the clock. And even if you aren't, physically in the school, in the office doing the work you need to do, you're thinking about it, you're constantly preparing for lessons, preparing to meet a health partner, preparing to do whatever it is that you need to do. And so that normal 9 to 5 that you might find in like an entry-level position outside of college, at least in my case, is not the case. So that can be, something to think about if you do appreciate that structure. That can be tough with organizations like ours. There's also, again, these, educational stipends and grants that you can receive are great. But if, you really, really value that financial stability, that, for some people is just something to think about. I do, currently have some friends that went straight into working on Wall Street, and while, each to their own, what, will make you feel most fulfilled, that's what's most important. But especially coming off of what can be some hefty student loan debt, it's definitely things to consider. And it's fantastic that these organizations have put together these ways to try and subsidize those costs. We don't want any of these, opportunities to be a burden. And so that's why these grants exist, but it definitely, isn't a 60K starting salary. And so if that is something that you value, then that's also something to think about. And then in general, the work can just occasionally be somewhat emotionally exhausting. And I think it's important to just reflect on that, whether or not you are in the place to be taking on that work. You can be exposed to some really, really tough situations, tough things, frustrating situations. It kind of feels like the world is on your shoulders when you're really engrossed in these, in poverty and hunger and homelessness, working with children. you really can get exposed to some very, very transformative things, but also some very emotional things. And so it's important to think about whether or not you're in a place to really be addressing that and dealing with that ethically and responsibly.
Thank you, Rachel. Matt, I know that you shared that you've volunteered with AmeriCorps and also with Peace Corps, and then of course you work really closely with the College Advising Corps. So are there any other challenges that you've experienced personally, or that maybe you've seen the college advisors experience during their service year?
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting time in your life when you come out of college, and in many ways, at least for me and many of my friends and people I've worked with, you're at sort of a height of idealism, and you get this amazing commencement speech and you're ready to go just take on the world, and then you're kind of smacked with some real nitty-gritty real world challenges that maybe you hadn't even considered, and so there's like this cycle of almost like you're on such a high at the beginning of the year, and then you kind of come down and kind of confront all these challenges, and then it's sort of picking yourself up and building back up throughout the remainder of your experience. But it's the thing that I think is really cool is that when you have that experience, you're gonna have that experience regardless of what you do in your life. But if you're doing a program like Teach for America or AmeriCorps or any of those other types of programs, Peace Corps, you're going to have that experience when you're surrounded by peers who have similar motivations as you. You have program staff that are there to help walk you through these challenges. So it's a great opportunity to really like make the most of that sort of shell shock that can come after college.
Thank you, Matt. I want to transition a little bit and talk about just some of the qualifications or experiences that you all are typically looking for in applicants. I know some of these programs are quite competitive. So I just wanted to kind of get your all's advice as far as like, what are the qualifications or specific experiences that you're looking for? And maybe Phil, I'll start with you on this one.
Sure. So every program will be different. So be sure to check on each of these programs' websites for any specifics. But as far as city year, our hard criteria would be being between the ages of 18 and 25, being a U.S. citizen, as well as having a high school diploma. So those are the three main requirements. But in terms of what makes a strong applicant, we're looking for those people that have that heart of service. A lot of what you've heard from the recruiters on the call is talking about grit, that concept that you can make it through something even though it's challenging. That's what we're looking for, those people that have that flexibility, those people that have a willingness to overcome the fact that many of these schools that you would work with in city year are under-resourced, but not letting that stop you from helping your students, finding a way to problem solve with your team, and going back to the point of you're not in this alone. You're with other people that share this idealism with you. So we're looking for those team players, those people that have that heart of service, as well as those that just have that desire to give back in that broad sense.
Thank you, Phil. Jackie, do you want to comment on that? I know that Teach for America is a very competitive program. So what is it that kind of makes an applicant stand out from the applicants that you all receive?
Yeah, I'd love to. First off, everyone that has shared, I know we were all here, and the 32 of you that are listening and the panelists, you're all here because you care about people. And I think that's just so incredible, especially given everything that's going on in the world. At Teach for America, we always say that we believe that potential is equally distributed across lines of race and class, but that opportunity is not. And that's why we exist. Is the number one thing we're looking for is that the people that apply for Teach for America, our prospects, also have that same belief in the potential of all students, regardless of their zip code, regardless of the funding that they receive. So that's first and foremost, is the deep belief in all kids. Second, you have to have a 2.5 GPA. You can apply as either a junior or a senior. We actually have our deadline that I mentioned earlier, that October 16th, that is for seniors. If you want to apply as a junior, that opens up in November 16th, and you actually don't have to accept until your senior year. So it's really good to, that's what I did. I applied as a junior, just kept my options open while I was applying to other things as well. And then I didn't make my decision until senior year. In addition to that, you also have to be a DACA recipient or a US citizen. You have to have demonstrated leadership skills. So that could be like formally a demonstrated leadership, like the president of a student organization, or it could be informal leadership, like you raised your little brother or whatever, however you self-identify your leadership. You have a chance to explain that in the application.
Thank you, Jackie. Rachel, I know that you're currently participating and you're probably graduated from school most recently. So what advice would you give our current college students as far as what types of experiences should they be getting involved in during their time here at Furman, or what are some things that they can really do to kind of make sure that their application is strong when it comes to applying for these types of opportunities?
Sure. I kind of echoing Jackie, seeing those formal and informal leadership experiences, those are so invaluable. Even if you don't go into a service organization, just to have those leadership experiences, no matter what path you end up taking, are extremely valuable. And so I highly encourage, in whatever capacity you can, to seek out opportunities to, either get involved with leadership in an organization, in a club. The skills that you learn in those leadership positions are just so invaluable. I would also say that in any of the work we're doing, you'll find that relationships are just cornerstone to this type of work. And so the ability to connect with people at this interpersonal level is so important. And so again, seeking out opportunities just, to relate to people, whether that's through organizations or different clubs, it's having those interpersonal skills, learning how to communicate with people is so important, because you will be dealing with frustrating conversations, awkward conversations, things like that. And so to be able to navigate through those respectfully and responsibly is super important. So gaining, those communication skills, I would argue, are also important. And I think as a recent college graduate, you have, the world at your fingertips. You have the access to all the information you could possibly need to educate yourself on current social justice issues. No one, is as fortunate in that respect than college students. And so I encourage you in whatever capacity you can to seek out courses and coursework that will allow you to explore what is going on inside the world outside of academia, to prepare yourself for what you're going to experience in these fields. Any type of class related to social justice, racism, gender, education, healthcare, health disparities, socioeconomic classes. You have access to those, I believe, at Furman, and I highly encourage you to participate in those classes, engage in that dialogue, and start learning now, because it will make these experiences so much easier for you once you get there.
Thank you, Rachel. So I want to go ahead, as promised, and provide our students with the opportunity to ask any questions that they may have. So you all feel free to utilize the chat function, and if you all have questions, we will give you an opportunity to submit those questions. And maybe while we're waiting, if someone wants to ask a question, go ahead and submit your questions. But Matt, do you have anything in addition you want to add to that, as far as the types of experiences that you're looking for when you're looking to hire for the College Advising Corps?
Sure. I think one thing that, there's some programs that you can do where you have a clear kind of structure and a boss and a little more direction. There are other programs like College Advising Corps, particularly Peace Corps, where you need to be a self-starter. You are setting your own, You might be writing your own job description. You might be really the first person serving in your school or launching a new project or in this community. So really what we look for is someone who has the ability to take initiative and has comfort kind of thinking out on the box or thinking outside of the box and being a self-starter.
Great, thanks, Matt. Okay, we've got a couple of questions coming in here. This question is specifically for Abby. The question is for AmeriCorps, is there a branch of AmeriCorps that you recommend for someone who is interested in health, social work, and is also looking to explore a new city?
So it would depend if you wanted to work with people directly or to work more behind the scenes. So there's the branches of NCCC and FEMACorps, and those are going to be primarily for things that are like disaster response, rebuilding national parks, outdoor work. In terms of having options to be more indoor office kind of work, that's going to be AmeriCorps State and National or VISTA. AmeriCorps State and National programs, which is what mine is, you work with people directly. You know, that might be tutoring students in a state and national program, preparing people's taxes, doing eye and ear screenings for those type of things. VISTA would be if you didn't necessarily want to be working with people directly and providing those services, but you wanted to make an organization and systems level more efficient and effective. So it's very project-based in VISTA. Those are all full-time one-year positions versus state and national. You have options to do summer or minimum time. So it would definitely depend on whether you wanted to do, you know, what location, whether you wanted to be in person or more behind the scenes, and whether you want to do full-time or part-time.
Thank you, Abby. This position is specifically for Jackie with Teach for America. The question reads, do you need to be in an academic program that will grant a teaching license after graduation, or can the program help individuals secure licensures while being involved? So I'm thinking that the student's thinking about maybe pursuing teaching as a career.
Great question. You do not need to have a license beforehand. You do not need to be an education major. When you are accepted to Teach for America, they will help you not only with funding, but also studying to get your teaching license in whichever region you are located. And then that license will be like good for however long you want to stay in teaching. Like a lot of it depends state by state, but even though I'm no longer teaching, I'm still licensed in the state of North Carolina, so I could go back to the classroom tomorrow. Teach for America will provide that. And then I saw another question in here just in the chat with, does Teach for America offer any programs shorter than 2 years? We are 2 years, like that's it's full salary, full benefits. So you will get paid around $40,000 to $50,000 through your school. That's your salary base is between the 40 and 50. And then in addition to that, the AmeriCorps grant of that $12,000 to pay back student loans. However, the only programs that we offer that like are not the Teach for America core members are usually over spring break, which we accelerate, or in the summer. Right now, all of those things are TBD based on COVID. So I don't want to guarantee that we're going to have spring break opportunities this year.
Thank you, Jackie. This one is for Ina for FoodCorps. What does the training process look like? Are you teaching pre-made lesson plans, or are you coming up with the information in your lesson plans every week?
Yeah, that's a great question. At the start of service, every service member gets a book about this thick, full of lesson plans. So there's already pre-made, developed lesson plans to do the vegetable taste tests and things like that, but there's always opportunity to adjust those lesson plans so that they're specific to the community in which or the classroom that you're teaching to. So, you know, and that kind of opportunity, you know, there's definitely a heavy level of support with the state staff and the service site to help develop those together. So you don't have to do that on your own. I also saw another question about how long the offers are available for. Because FoodCorps is such a competitive program, our offers actually are only available for 5 days. After 5 days, they expire, and that's when the next choice, or the person that'll be selecting, who was a second choice, would be selected and being offered the position. But our state staff typically will work with you, and if there's a conversation, they'll be happy to have conversations with you if you're unable to accept an offer within that 5-day window.
Thank you, Ina. This question is for Rachel. For Project Horseshoe Farm, do the fellows typically live together in a community style? What is the living situation like?
Sure, yeah. So I saw a question right before that is the housing provided? Housing is provided for free. We have 3 houses in Greensboro, 1 in Marion, and 1 in Pomona that have been generously donated to us from people in the community that are major supporters of Horseshoe Farm. And you live with other fellows in those houses. So I live in a house with 5 fellows. In Greensboro, there's another house with 5 fellows, and then another house with 4 fellows. And you live in neighborhoods, and you kind of get to interact with the neighborhood and become a part of that community, which is one of my favorite parts, is just getting to know our neighbors.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Do any of the other programs provide any type of housing?
We provide housing the summer before you start. So what I was talking about earlier about Institute, it's 6 weeks in the summer. We provide all of housing and all of your food stipend. And then once you start on your first day of school, you have the option to live. You could live at home, you could live with other Corps members, but that would be on your own. But again, it's full salary, full benefits. So when your salary starts, then you start paying for your own housing.
Thank you. This is a question that I think any of you could answer. So the question is about, how do you feel doing a service year compared to maybe your other peers that are starting their careers? I don't know if anybody wants to take Matt, you want to take on that one?
Yeah, I was interested by that question. So in addition to my role at Furman, I'm also a faculty member at Clemson University in the Institute on Family and Neighborhood Life. And so I do a lot of research on year of service programs in general. And there's actually been some comparative studies that look at how people kind of outcomes between people who do a year of service or directly enter the workforce. And a lot of research has found that people who do a year of service program develop some additional professional skills over and above their peers, particularly in their ability to work in groups, which is, highly important, and their ability to manage projects. I believe that a lot of that stems from when you do a year of service program, these programs are built around young people coming right out of college. So it's centered about the work that you will do. Whereas if you're taking an entry level position in a large company, you're kind of starting at the bottom rung. You might be doing sort of less responsibilities or like lower responsibilities, or so there's some advantages to doing a year of service compared to going right into the traditional workforce. That being said, a lot of it depends on what your career goals are and what fields you're interested in. Obviously, if you want to be in the nonprofit sector, then a year of service is great. If you want to be in, some other sectors, there's something to be said for going right into it. But there have been found some advantages in terms of the responsibilities and the meaningful work that you can do and how that impacts your career later on.
Thank you, Matt. There's quite a few questions coming in about the process, the placement of where you all work, and I know we didn't really touch on that too much. Abby, do you want to start with that one? Because the question was directed for AmeriCorps on how the process of site placement works. And then there's also some question about, should you choose a site where you want to live in the future?
Sure. So with our site placement process, and this is of course going to depend on the program that you're with, we obviously have a lot of different ones here. With me, when you turn in your application, I review it, and if you're selected for an interview, I'll reach out. The first interview is with me and with my director to see if you're the right fit for AmeriCorps. We explain a lot of the things that you talk about on the call today, make sure that you understand it's not a traditional job. And then if you're the right fit for our team, you have a second interview. So during the first interview, we get a feel for you. We talk to you about if you have a site preference. We are usually really, my boss and I work together for 5 years now, so we're usually pretty good at first try matching you up with somewhere for a second interview. Now, most of the time we get it right first try. You love the place that you interview, but I've had people interview 4 and 5 places before they find the perfect site match. About a third of my current site supervisors, so the people at the nonprofits that are hosting AmeriCorps members, are alums from my program, which is really cool. That's not to say that every AmeriCorps member who works in a nonprofit gets hired or wants to be hired, but it is definitely an option. But no, you don't have to serve where you want to stay. I mean, it could be good for building relationships. You're building a professional network. So here in Greenville, if you're an AmeriCorps member, you already are building, just by the end of the 2-week orientation, a network of 25 people at nonprofits across the upstate. You already have a contact there. They each have supervisors and executive directors. So just by being part of it, you have a network you'd never had before. But I have had people go across the world teaching English in China. I had someone go to school for tax accounting in Australia, across the country. For my program, it doesn't necessarily mean that serving in Greenville has to be where you want to end up.
Thank you, Abby. Phil, do you want to, I know City Year has a lot of locations. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you decide where your volunteers are placed?
Sure. So when you apply to City Year, you're applying to one specific location. So let's say you wanted to go to San Antonio, Texas. That's where you are sending your application. But you also have the ability to select a few other locations that might be of interest to you. Typically, we are processing your application for your first choice, but in rare occasions, we will trickle down your list. In addition, you could apply to just a region. So let's say you just wanted to stay in the South. That will put your application open to those locations in that area. And if you want to be even more general, you can just say you want to serve where most needed. So you just want to go where City Year sees that you might be the best fit. So that's how we work with location. And similarly, you don't have to be married to that location. That could just be somewhere you are for your 1 year of service. Let's say if you apply and you are admitted to City Year, you serve in City Year Los Angeles. The next year, if you want to do an additional year, you could go to New York. It's very transient in that regard.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate it. So here's an interesting question that's coming in. If we had a student who doesn't want to do a service year program immediately after graduation, what are the age requirements for your programs? You know, City Year, I think you mentioned, Phil, you have a limit of 25, but what are some of the other age limits for some of your other organizations?
College Advising Corps, we employ like what's called a near peer model. So we're looking for people who are 1 or 2 years out of college. I will say Peace Corps actually really, they welcome applicants from people immediately out of college, but they really welcome people with some professional experience or a master's degree. So that is certainly a good option for those of you like a few years down the line from graduation if you're interested in doing a service experience.
FoodCorps, the only age requirement is that you have to be at least 18 years old. There is no age limit. There's no upper age limit. We even have seen parents of school children become service members.
Jackie, what's the Teach for America's qualification?
Yes, you have to have your bachelor's degree by the first day of school. So even if you would apply right now as a junior, that means you wouldn't, your first day of school teaching wouldn't be until fall of 2022. But there is no limit. Actually, I taught with a few middle-aged men and women in my corps. Some of them are on second career, so they might have done something first, and then now they want to change positions and go into Teach for America, and they're 45 years old. So there is no age requirement.
Anybody else want to comment on that?
We have folks of all ages. I've got someone who just has a high school diploma right now, and I have some retirees. So it definitely depends on the program. I know that there's a whole branch of AmeriCorps that's now called AmeriCorps Seniors that I put in the chat. So maybe you guys aren't there yet, obviously, but I don't know who's on the call. But my mother-in-law wants to do it when she retires and is really interested in some of those senior programs.
Thank you, Abby.
And then given the smaller, more grassroots nature of our organization at this time, we require a bachelor's degree, and then most of our fellows are within 3 years of when they graduated college. So some may have taken a few gap years, but in the most part, it is recent college graduates.
Thank you, Rachel. Well, I know that our time is coming to an end, so I thought we would maybe just end, and I would provide each of you just with an opportunity just to share a closing remark or maybe one final piece of advice that you wish that you had when you were a college student considering your next steps after graduation. So Matt, I'll start with you.
Don't do the program that you think would be the most comfortable for you. Do the program that you think will make you grow the most over these next couple of years.
Great advice. Thanks. How about you, Ina? Any advice?
Just get to know people, learn from other people and what other people have experienced. And that's what I always gravitated towards the people that I was excited to be around.
Great. That's great. How about you, Rachel?
As someone who was in all of your shoes literally just last year, my one piece of advice is to do as much research as you can into these organizations. This can be one of the most, transformative and life-changing experiences, but for some people, it just doesn't work out. And my understanding is that they just didn't do their research into what they were getting themselves into. So talk to as many people as you can, get as much information as you can, so that this can be the experience you really want it to be.
Great advice. Thanks, Rachel. Phil, what is your advice?
I think as you go through these programs and hopefully are accepted, don't think of it so much as networking, but think of it as just building relationships. I think that's something that we touched on. The people that you serve with, the people that manage you, they all will disperse eventually, but keep in contact with these people. This will build a powerful group of people that you can rely on throughout the country, even the world.
Thank you, Phil. How about you, Abby? Any last words of advice?
Doing a service year will change you. I am in a very different place from many of my peers. I know some of you were talking about like folks that are doing engineering, or I think it was you, Rachel, saying that they're just in totally different places. But I learned how to manage my money very well. I'm very thrifty. I know how to prepare my own taxes now. That was part of my program. I understand federal benefits, but I experienced something outside of the bubble. I know there's a Furman bubble. I didn't go to Furman, but I know there is one. And I got to meet people who were homeless. I got to meet, the mayor of the town that I was in and the police chief, and go to Chamber of Commerce meetings and make all of these connections of people in all different walks of life and all different backgrounds. And so if you do this, take every opportunity and build that network and just grow. And AmeriCorps or service year may mean that you find out what you don't want to do. That guy I mentioned that went to Australia for accounting, he realized that he didn't want to work directly with people, but he really liked taxes. So I think that is just as valuable if you find out that maybe it's not the right thing, but you grew.
Thank you, Abby. And Jackie, I'll end with you. Any final words of advice?
We're all so great. It's hard to follow up. I think everyone who is here, like I said earlier, we are all have a common drive, a common mission for equity or whatever that is that you are so passionate about, whether that's food or housing or financial literacy. So I would just follow your heart, as cheesy as it is, and you're never going to be as young as you are right now. So if you think this is such a great opportunity, take it and do it now. You will be transformed. It will set you up for the rest of your life. And something that's so amazing about Teach for America and every other organization that's here is you're going to be surrounded by people who also have those really strong moral beliefs. You are not going to be placed alone doing this work. You will be surrounded by other incredible change makers who are just as fired up as you are about helping people in whatever way you choose. So thank you all for being here.
Great. That's great advice to end with. Well, I want to just extend a big thank you to all of our panelists that joined us tonight. We really appreciate it. I know our students learned so much about all of the great service opportunities that you all offer. Also want to encourage our students, if you have any questions, I will be providing some of the resources that they shared with you all tonight in a follow-up email. And just also want to encourage you to come in and meet with your career advisors. We're happy to help you with your application materials for these programs, or just to kind of help you think about what program may be the best fit for you. So definitely take advantage of the career advisors here at the Malone Center for Career Engagement. So once again, a big thanks to all of our panelists and all of the students that joined us tonight. I hope everyone has a great evening.